Good evening and welcome to Carte Blanche, the show where candid conversations about our great city and state take center stage. I'm your host, Layla Law-Gisiko, and tonight I am thrilled to receive the fairy godmother of our city's skyline. Stay with us as we give Gail Benjamin carte blanche to talk about the vision, the challenges, and the future of New York City's urban landscape. I still wonder, what problem are we trying to solve? Urban farming? I mean, what exactly is, do we need to smoke more pot and homegrown is going to be the way to go?
Well, there are those who are concerned that the only things that are growing in this city are smoke shops and gambling. But, I made my opinion of the city of Yes known on the record. I am not a fan of mixed neighborhoods in certain ways. I think that one of the things most people in New York want is to live in a place where they can have quiet enjoyment when they get home. I know that many people think that the way everybody should live is a 24/7 work-life neighborhood that's vibrant 24. I don't think that most people actually want to live in that neighborhood. Or, as my husband is wont to say to people, people talk all the time about what they want is, they love New York because they can go out and get a cappuccino at 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, and how many people really do that?
Exactly. It's like, when was the last time you went for a cappuccino?
Yeah,
never.
It's the idea of it. So I think that people want that, and that to the extent we keep trying to blur those lines, and we're making a mistake, and we're making our neighborhoods less livable.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
But I was in the minority.
But it was a, I really appreciated the comments by the commissioners. I think that you guys look into in such detail, on and this was just a beast. It was 1,000+ pages.
Yep. And in Soho, as with other districts that had this issue, including Dumbo, people started out saying, we love the idea of being in this building with manufacturing and it's vibrant and I can get my coffee at 3 in the morning. And then as they were living in it, they said, those trucks, they pull up at like 4:30 in the morning and they're outside idling with their exhaust, and they wake up and the exhaust is in my apartment, and then the elevator, I can't get on the elevator for hours because they're using it for their goods. And the manufacturers are saying, these people don't want me to exist. And eventually, certainly in Soho, the manufacturers left.
Yeah.
And in Dumbo, the manufacturers left. I can't really think of anywhere, if both were in the same building, that the manufacturing won.
Yeah.
And
it is a super vulnerable use. It is. I mean, it's so nauseous and not meant to be next to residences.
And that's why we have zoning in the first place.
Exactly.
Because we thought those two didn't mesh.
It's like, they should not coexist.
And so to the extent that the city of Yes said, well, they can be on the same floor as long as they have 15 feet and they have insulation, I think they have a hard sell for many of the communities that have seen this.
Yeah, no, it's, and then it goes down to enforcement. If you're in the garment district and, all of a sudden you need to finish a particular production for delivery, you're going to have your sewing machines working 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you enforce it? In 2 weeks it will be over, but for those 2 weeks your life is going to be really disturbed by this use.
And the whole issue of enforcement and buildings, I mean, Jimmy Otto, who's the buildings commissioner, used to be a council member. But the buildings department historically feels that their most significant issue is safety for larger buildings and projects. So if you as an individual call and say, you know, they're working all night here.
I know, 3A is making a lot of noise.
Or even the building next to mine, well, the lot next to mine, a new building was being constructed. And they did not have a permit to work at night. And yet, they were working at night. And I called the buildings department, and I called 311, and I made a complaint. And a week later, on the website, my complaint was answered, and they said that no activity was observed. Well, the inspector
came on a weekday.
Yeah, came on a weekday at 4 o'clock. So nighttime work was not observed. Well, and I understand that they have a budget and they can't have a lot of inspections at night, but when you've said that that's it. So the new rules that are supposed to protect the residential people, I'm not sure that they'll get a high priority from the buildings department and from inspectors.
Yeah, it's also, you know, it's unfair on the Department of Buildings to put this burden.
I agree.
You know, that's why we have zoning. Zoning should be, you know, the you know, framework to actually make sure that these issues don't happen. So.
And that was the original purpose of zoning. And as we move away from that, I don't know, maybe other people think that Houston and Dallas are a great example for how cities should grow and live, but they're not my example. I'm one of the, I'm a Euclidean zoning person. I think we should have areas that are residential and that residential is to be protected. That we have areas that are commercial and retail and with some residential above, and then we have areas that are manufacturing to the extent that we have manufacturing, although we still have more manufacturing than most cities in America.
It's vibrant. It is really vibrant. You know, the garment district is such a good example. And, you know, I'm really excited to see how, you know, that particular rezoning comes to be with the, you know, the South Midtown rezoning. It's going to be very, very tricky to strike the right balance.
Well, we've been talking about it for 20 years now, ever since we had the Garment District Special District. Maybe more, every so often this comes back around, and there's yet more meetings with Click and with Unite and with the owners of the buildings in the Garment District as we try to hammer out something that will allow them. They're always talking about the empty space and that they should be able to rent it as offices without going through this whole procedure. And then Click says, no, you should be able to rent it for manufacturing or showroom use. But, and the industry is changing there also. So what will they need is unclear. Maybe all they'll need is a room filled with computers and cutting machines.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's changed so much. You know, the one thing I will say about this proposal, what I really, really lament is that, you know, it's a broad proposal. I love comprehensive zoning. I think this is the way to do it. I hate spot zoning. This is the exact opposite of it. Bravo. And then they leave the entire Penn Station out of it. It's like, please, add it. You know, please, until we figure out what the state is going to do with this area, add it. Even if it's just, you know, the new underlying zoning that could be overridden by the state, that's okay. But don't leave it out. It is so tied to, you know, these 4 quadrants that are being worked on. Don't leave it out.
Well, I was involved, and I was on the charrette committee for the bus terminal several years ago. And that was fascinating because of all of those, I mean, I walked by one of them, all of those little bus locations that are spread throughout this neighborhood and what the future was. And it was interesting to see which development groups came up with. Somehow it always comes down to the fact that the Port Authority board is mostly made up of real estate developers. And they're looking at the development potential of the bus terminal, not of how people come in and out of New York for work, for recreation, so the board was hot on moving it somewhere else to one of those other, but none of those locations are big enough.
No, and you know, it's super tricky when you also have so many cooks in the kitchen. You know, New Jersey's in the room, New York is in the room, the Port Authority. You know, it becomes incredibly complicated with, you know, different cultures, different leadership egos, different forms of governance. I mean, all of that makes for a very, very complicated affair. The one thing I will say is that developers are really doing their job. Their job is really to see the development potential and seek the best deal that they can. What I find a little harder is actually to see what those who are in a position of governmental power and how they handle it. And I consider that, you know, their job is not to be a wealth manager for the developers. And at times I lament that, you know, certainly for Penn Station and the state project, the GPP, to you know, rezone or override the zoning resolution around Penn Station. I find that, you know, it is a tremendously missed opportunity because really the state acted as wealth manager.
You know, we had the Madison Square Garden special permit, and so many of these issues came up. And 10 years ago, I had the Madison Square Garden special permit, and 12 years ago, I had the modification to the special permit when Madison Square Garden was redoing the interior. And so my impression remains that the only time that the MTA thinks about Penn Station is when the permit's going to come up. But other than that, and I said as much to Jamie, that where were they, if they were so interested in having a better coordinated Penn Station, where were they when One Penn Plaza was adding 100,000 square feet to that building?
Exactly.
Where were they then? Mm-hmm. If they wanted to have something open to the sky, it was open to the sky. The whole front of the pediment and building, and then the breezeway. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear anything from the TA or the MTA then. They weren't interested.
No.
I said, when we were decided to do the Moynihan Center, and you guys said that, you know, you were going to open up all this space so that you could redesign Penn Station's interior by moving all the Amtrak and New Jersey Transit functions across the street. Well, they moved, and you're still telling me we don't have enough space to be able to do anything. And then when I say, well, but how much space is there, and what do you need it? Other than using it as a shopping mall for people waiting, and I said, I'm sorry, but most people who want to get on the train there maybe they'll grab a magazine, a water, or a bite to eat, but they're not interested in your high-end shopping concept.
Or dining.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in sitting outside in a park.
No.
And I just said, every opportunity you've had over my 30 years, you have not taken it. So now you're telling us, and now you've gotten a whole community behind you who are saying, we should have a really significant Penn Station. I don't want to say that I don't trust that that's ever going to happen. But I'm not sure the users of Penn Station really care in the same way you do about what the exterior of this looks like. You gave up those opportunities every time you had them, and the GPP doesn't do any better at giving you more opportunities,
No. Except
that it gives you more land over which you can dither.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, when you talk to commuters, what they really want is to be able to get home faster, in a more direct way, and with more connectivity. That's the only thing that matters to them.
Mm-hmm.
The cappuccino, the snack, the magazine, it's great. If they have to take it 2 blocks before they get to the train station, they can absolutely do that. When they're at the train station, they want to know that they don't have to run to the platform
They want to know that they can tell when the train is leaving and where it's leaving from,
Yeah.
and that they can easily, they want that wayfinding.
Exactly. They want the wayfinding. They don't want to be on, the stupid mezzanine, in front of the board waiting for the track to appear and then, running with, another 1,000 people to get to the platform. They don't want that. And they want trains that run more often and provide more connectivity and that run faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want. And this is where, I think that, certainly our advocacy was really to say, you need to take that as your guiding principle. It's not about making it pretty. Anyone will make it pretty. It's okay. You'll get good architects.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's going to be lovely. Let's not worry about this. What we need is really to focus on the modality. How do the trains move in and out or through Penn Station? And I'm certainly of the mind that through running, the trains being able to come from Trenton, New Jersey, to Ronkonkoma, Long Island, and pick whatever points in between. This is what commuters want, and this is also what is the engine of economic growth, because then you don't concentrate the economic activity in one particular area. You spread it, and this is
particularly if you see how the percentage of commuters from New Jersey has gone up and up and up and up and up, as has the number of commuters from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I mean, whether they're on the bus or on the train, those are the ones that are soaring. Long Island is not soaring.
Yes.
I mean, that was
They're
one
still
of
the majority, but for how long?
Yes.
It's, absolutely.
And you're right, as a so we have to look at it regionally.
Exactly.
And regionally, we need to get people in and out. And that's what we were looking at when we were looking at the bus terminal, which was that the problems that the bus terminal has now with the size of the terminal, the turns it has to make, and the size of the buses would only be worsened by a move to most of the places that the board was interested in. The one that could work, but it's too far for the commuter, is building it on top of the convention center. There you could have a real bus terminal. But getting the commuters from the convention center uphill to the subway.
Which, of course, that could have happened if, when they were building Hudson Yards, they created a connection.
Yes, which was one of the
missed opportunities.
And it's still not too late to do that, but that was our best location, and our votes were either that, which would have a real bus terminal, which could allow the buses to come and leave much more quickly, to load up more quickly. The commuters, exactly what you said, the commuters want an experience, so you know what time the bus is going to come, what time the bus is going to leave, where it's going to be.
Yeah.
And our second choice was leaving it at the current location and making some changes, expanding it towards 9th Avenue. But, which I must say is what the staff wanted.
Yeah.
But
and given the constraints, it's actually, it's remarkable. You know, it is a big accomplishment. And listen, you know, getting any large project to move forward
it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And there's good news with that and bad, is that the fact that it takes so long gives us a chance to really think during each stage, is this really where we should be going? Is this effort really going to result in something worthwhile? On the other hand, time is money.
Yeah.
And so it keeps getting more expensive to do whatever it is you're going to do.
Yeah. And more complicated to fund. And, you know, infrastructure is just so complicated to, you know, get through the finish line.
And our infrastructure in the city is now almost 100 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I used to work at DEP. So I saw the status of our infrastructure up close, and
it's
an amazing thing that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the, you know, it's like definitely no one is going to run a campaign on water infrastructure, but that's what Bloomberg ended up doing. I mean, he did it in the, you know, never took the credit for it, but it was remarkable. And most people don't know, you know, that he created a whole redundancy for
the third water tunnel.
Yeah.
I mean, that plan had been in the books for a long time, and parts of it had started, but he
made
really,
it happen.
It was happening, but he really furthered it, made it happen in a quicker fashion, and really figured out how to finance it quicker, which was one of the big issues, which is our bonding authority and how much we can bond.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really, really impressive, you know, and like one of those, you know, things that we don't think about. We take it for granted.
Absolutely. We take for granted that when we turn on the tap, clean water comes out.
Yeah.
And that when we flush, things go away. We don't really think about what it takes every day for that to happen.
Yeah.
The only time we think about that is in garbage, when we put our garbage out and we have this rat problem, or the garbage stinks, or the garbage isn't picked up.
Yeah, no, otherwise it's like, you know, this whole flawless system is we take it entirely for granted.
And all over the world, I love to travel, but you know, I love it when people tell me how it's so much better someplace else, that they've got it figured out, that everybody does their part. And as I said, I was in Paris in December and was having a conversation in January with somebody at City Planning who was explaining to me how the Parisians all care for their garbage.
Yes.
And I said, well, they have places to bring their garbage to. I said, but if you go to those places, you will also see that the things are not big enough for all the garbage, and that people have their, exactly like we have, but that, what are people to do? So the garbage is stacked up around the garbage facilities because they have nowhere else to put it. And he said, but I'm sure if they petitioned the government would bring more receptacles. And I said, so what, you think they're all stupid and they don't know that? I said, I don't know who decides what receptacles they have, but I'm assuming that people are people and they probably have asked.
Yeah, And we know French people know how to be really loud.
And, you know, with every city, these are major issues that don't, because we have this planning function split up between all of these different agencies. Sanitation is planning for sanitation in the future. City planning is trying to plan where populations are going to be. DEP is planning how they're going to get water. They rely on each other, but in the old days, city planning was the capital budget planner.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so they could take into account the population growth and where it was, or the population diminishment and where that was going to happen, and they could help plan the capital budget accordingly, but that was broken years ago. And now each agency is doing their own, and I guess in its own way, OMB is supposed to be the agency that makes that determination. But I'm not sure that it's actually being done.
I mean, we have a budget each year, which is a miracle, on time, with the battles that need to happen, but in the end, it does get passed, and we're able to fund services that are the services that we need. I think that the lack of education on the budget is the one thing that, you know, I lament a little bit. You know, people are talking a lot about, you know, land use or public safety, but it's like, you know, we need to be educated on the budget. This is really, you know, this is the most important
I think
negotiation.
If most people actually told you their personal priorities for the city and city services, number one would be fixing the streets. Whether it's potholes or the condition of the streets or the daylighting, or people trying to figure out these days what lines mean, where they're supposed to be. I think many, many, many New Yorkers are just up in arms about the condition of the streets that they use.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point has stepped off the curve, and all of a sudden, I think that New Yorkers are up in arms about, well, New Yorkers with kids are up in arms about education.
Yeah. Education will always get people really.
And the
riled
age-old
up.
continuing battle between charter schools
Yeah.
and regular public schools.
We're going to have to do a second show. You realize that?
I mean, those are the things. I mean, I try to listen to people more than I try to talk. And the things I hear that people are concerned about are, although I think there's a generational difference also, are the subways. I mean, the subways, I think, are the lifeline of New York. And I'm a subway rider.
Yeah.
I own a car, though. I will have to say, I do own a car. In fact, we own 2 cars. But we don't even get 5,000 miles a year on our car.
But I think we're all of the above, right? We're pedestrians, we
Yes.
are passengers in automobiles driven by cab drivers and
Uber, Lyft.
drivers, and
Yes.
we are
We're bus
bicyclists, we are subway riders. I think that we use all the modalities, and you know, I find the identity around, you know, the transportation mode to be rather irking. You know, it's like, I don't want to be pigeonholed in you know, being this person or that person. You know, I'm all of the above. You know, at times I drive a car, at times I ride a bicycle, and you know, I walk on the sidewalk. And it's like we're gonna have to learn not to be like, you know, the hardcore. Oh yeah, you know, I'm the bicyclist. It's like, well, you know, it's okay, but we can't be, it's like getting people out of their cars. Some people are, staunch advocates for public transportation. God bless their hearts. At times, I am also that person. But we cannot expect people to, become like, the advocates. We're going to have to make public transportation really good so that people get off their cars.
Well, it also depends on where you live. Growing up out by Kennedy Airport, where I had to walk the last stop on the bus line to the last stop on the train line. Are you going to get those people out
well,
of...
if you build adequate network of transportation, which is why I think that through running is what is going to get people off their cars. If
city planning thinks that is adequate, that's a transit-rich neighborhood, because there's a bus that goes to the train.
All right, they all have to go to Paris and the metro region so that, they see, it's all about the connectivity. It's all about the connectivity.
It's also about what Manhattan is not the same as Queens.
Yes.
And Queens is not the same as Staten Island. Are we going to build a new railroad system for Staten Island to come to better connect to the rest of the city? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, that is probably not happening in a while.
And there are times we can just deal with a citywide approach, but there are times we have to be more localized and realize that the problems and the issues that face that community are different. If you live in Southeast Queens, you're not going to walk to the supermarket.
Yeah.
It's not, you could, but it's pretty far. And then with the regionalization of supermarkets, it's even further. For most of it to do a real shopping, you'd have to walk into Nassau. So that is an area where people will continue to have cars because they need them in order to live their daily lives, because it's a community that is set up around a car.
Yeah.
And so for many of those people, certainly I spent 6 years from junior high school and high school doing that commute every day, which was about 2 hours in each direction. Many people were on the bus with me and the train because that's what we had. And people like that are not the people who are driving into Manhattan on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Because by and large, they're middle-class people, and paying to park somewhere in Manhattan just is not in their budget.
Gail, I'm actually happy to introduce you to our next session of this show, which is pole dancing. So this is where we get the groove. The segment is where we talk about polls and opinion surveys. So an interesting survey that I wanted to share with you. New York One asked followers on their social media, should New York City have a casino? And the response was that 70% of respondents said no. And Senator Ramos of Queens actually released her own survey in which she found out that 61% of respondents said that they would not want to see a full casino anywhere in Queens. So that's interesting because it looks like, those surveys are, certainly the New York One survey was informal. It was done through their social media, suggests that actually New Yorkers don't want a casino. And yet, the City Planning Commission just recently authorized casino use that is currently not permitted to actually be considered as of right, provided that the
they have to
state
Gaming
entities,
Commission.
Gaming Commission, and then the Community Advisory Committee that needs to be created consider that this is where it could be cited. So it looks like it is very likely that New York City will have a casino. And what I found interesting is that this was the result of actually a vote by voters of the state of New York, and they said yes to casino licenses downstate. So what to make of that? Is it that, you know, we felt like, oh, well, gee, yeah, it's good so long as it's not in my backyard?
Well, I think two things. One, I think that people don't, when you have a ballot, the further down you go, the fewer people who vote.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see how many people actually got that far into the ballot. Very few, I'm sure. I would also say I'm not a great believer in polls because I myself never answer them. And so I think there are lots of people out there who may have opinions, but they're not. Then there's the question of how the poll is done. Is it a push poll? Are they pushing you towards one direction or another? So I think there's an inherent issue with polls to start with. I will say, however, what surprised me, at the hearing we had on adding gaming to a use group, we did not have one person who was opposed show up. Not one.
That is, wow. But you got resolutions from community boards.
Yes.
Community boards 4, 5, and 6 in Manhattan unanimously voted against the zoning text change. And not necessarily on the grounds of whether we like casinos or not, but on the grounds that ULURP should not be usurped. We need ULURP.
I myself am not a casino fan. I don't have a lot of experience in them because as a business, their purpose is to take my money.
Yes.
I mean, that is their model, one way or another. And if
you're not interested in that.
Right. If I'm going to give my money to something, I want something in return, like entertainment or food or... and some of the studies that I've read suggest that, well, the reason that the city was so interested is as an economic generator. And they've read all the studies, and the state studies show that this can be an economic generator and produce income for the city and produce taxes for the city. And the city at this time is desperate for money. So the mayor really did get behind the idea of it. Although, as I said, a number of studies suggest that the return is not as robust as was thought. I mean, we all have the example of Atlantic City. Although there, you know, some of the studies suggest that it was the concentration, there were too many, that not every place is Las Vegas. I worry about the uses that come with casinos. That is not the fault of the casino per se, but there are some uses I would consider undesirable that tend to be around it, one of which is the problem of chronic gamblers. And I know that in the request that the State Gaming Commission sent out, all of the respondents had to include their plans for how they were going to have programs to deal with chronic gamblers, addictive gamblers, but I'm just not convinced that this is the best way for the city to be looking for additional income.
Yeah.
And that we're going to get it.
So do you think that New York is going to get the casino? Because it's downstate. It doesn't have to be New York City.
I think that it is likely. that there will be a full casino at Aqueduct. But whether anybody really wants to go to Aqueduct, I mean, people go there now. I'm not sure, and it's nothing that, this is my gut, and I'm not sure that people really want to go to a casino anymore. People who want to gamble can gamble online.
Yeah.
And they have so many, not just online gambling, but FanDuel and all the other ways in which you can bet your money on something. Now, granted, it may not be the fun of a roulette wheel, although you can do that too. So I'm not sure how many people really want to go to a place to gamble and whether that will prove successful. I mean, in Las Vegas, in addition to the gambling, and they certainly have gambling, you have to walk through gambling to get to the hotel to check in. But they have also diversified, and I think as a result of being aware that they're missing out on audiences. So now they're going to have a football team, and they're going to have a baseball team, and they have incredible levels of entertainment, musical, theater,
Yep.
Museum level, I wouldn't call it a museum, but museum level art. So I think even they realize people are not going to come there just to gamble. And they have these resorts where you get to have this beautiful pool and drinks and dinner and restaurants and the shopping malls at the Venetian and all of these other activities for people to engage in that are not gambling. So while the 12 or 13 respondents clearly are including other things, whether it's hotels or arenas in their bids, I'm just not sure. For the ones in Manhattan, I'd have to say, they already have all of these other things.
Yeah, exactly.
So do people want to come to Manhattan to gamble? Maybe they'll gamble one night if it's a really fancy, if they think they're in like Monaco and they have a really fancy gambling establishment. But I don't think most of the people who are going to go to gamble have Monaco money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that, this was, certainly the position that Community Board 5 took. It's like, we don't need this. We are already, an economic engine for the city, probably for the region. If you had to measure the GDP of CB5, it registers. It's pretty up there. We don't need this economic growth. The delta between where we are and what the casino is going to bring is probably not worth the negatives. So, I mean, should there be a casino in New York? I don't know, but certainly it should not be in CB5. And I think that the Community Board 6 took a similar position. They feel that they are a strong, and they have a larger residential population that also feels that having a casino next to a residential district is detrimental. And the economic justification does not apply.
Well, the Bronx Community Board at the Ferry Point Golf, they voted in favor. Now they are separated. The golf course is separated by the New England Expressway from the Ferry Point community. So, but I'm not sure. And in Aqueduct, they do have people who are not across the street, but there's a whole racetrack there. There's arguably enough space and separation.
It looks like Coney Island is also, leaning favorably.
Well, the Coney Island board voted against it in Coney Island, but for it elsewhere in the city.
Oh, well.
The Willits, I don't remember what the Willits Point Board did. I think they voted in favor because the borough president voted in favor.
Yeah.
I don't remember what Mark Levine did.
He voted in favor. Yeah. Yeah, and the 3 community boards that got a chance to weigh in voted against it. And I really regretted that other community boards did not have the chance or took the opportunity to opine. Because in the end, you know, as much as it only applies for these 3 licenses, and you know, right now we only know of 3 community boards in Manhattan that may be impacted by proposals, the reality is that we're not going to do this whole thing all over again. We will not start from scratch. And you know, if there are new licenses issued for downstates, we'll take the same roadmap. And therefore, you know, it's prudent to log your comments now rather than.
Although we did, the only thing we did do was we put a sunset clause on it.
Yes, that was actually really very interesting, and that was good. That was really good. Although now it looks like it may really get in the way of the whole thing. It's like, well.
Well, you know, I understand why they needed this to go forward, but since several of them also need ULURP anyway, or they need state action, for the one in the Bronx, they need to demap the park.
Yeah.
And for one other one needs a demapping.
Queens.
Yeah. The Willits Point.
Yeah.
And Coney Island needs.
They need something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to come through ULURP, but they couldn't come through. So I was never.
Yeah. The whole thing does not really.
Well, it's an example.
I think it's a missed opportunity. It is really a missed opportunity.
I think it's an example of the mayor and the council, frankly, at the time this was coming through, being desperate for money. They saw that the federal COVID funds were going away, and they were going to have this big hole in the budget, and what were they going to do? And this was the savior. Yeah,
which, you know, I get it, but, you know, it's like, let's do it the correct way. You know, and I know, I mean, non-ULURPs is probably, you know, going to plunge this department into, you know, like, I mean, they're already overworked. It's crazy. Let's really acknowledge that, and how hard they work and how amazing these planners are. But at the same time, we cannot just, you know, let 6 people on this CAC decide what a casino is going to look like. And it's also that, you know, in the end, the ULURP decision really lies in the hands of the city council. And the city council should not let this responsibility, you know, be taken over by this group.
Well, except they have more power. Each one of the council members will be on the CAC.
But as one out of 6 others. So they can be,
but
they can be outvoted.
Well, they could be, but the likelihood that the borough president and the council member would not be in concert.
I think this is, you know, it's going to, my fear, and, you know, it's been established that, you know, I dabble with conspiracy theories. My fear is that politically, the council member will not have to do the heavy lifting. He can say, oh no, I'll vote no, because he knows that, you know, the 4 others are going to vote in favor. So he or she will look good.
Except that game doesn't work with term limits, because that council member is going to be running against one of those people in all probability.
Yes and no. You know, if they play the dance correctly, maybe, you know, one will, you know, be term limited and then will run for the assembly seat, and then the assemblyman will run for the council seat. You know,
that hasn't happened that much because of term limits. That if somebody is on the assembly and they can have that for the next 30 years, coming to the council where they have a maximum of 8 years and then they have to look around again.
Yeah, but the assembly, you have to go to Albany, and for all those who have families, I don't know. I worry that, and especially given that to me, it is a given that the governor and the mayor will cast their vote in favor of every single one of these applications. They will move forward, and it will be, in the hands of the Gaming Commission. So we're left with the state senator, the assembly member, the council member, and the borough president of that particular turf. And I could totally see a situation, let's say in CB5 with the Times Square Casino. I could totally see a
is that Tony Simone or is that Eric?
Well, Tony is the assembly member, Simone is the assembly member, and Eric Butcher is the council member. And I could see, or I worry that they would all find a way to look good while letting a casino move forward. And that I worry about that. And quite frankly, I think that the council member should be the one who is in the driver's seat. They have also, because they have the expertise from someone like you, who, as the director.
Well, I'm not sure these days that these council members would listen to somebody like me. But they believe that
they need the technical. They need the technical.
They don't think they do. They believe that somebody like me, even the last group, felt that somebody like me was not doing their bidding. They wanted someone to do the bidding of what they wanted, as opposed to talking with them about what was possible, what was not possible, what was...
The bottom line, though, Gail, I really believe that it is such a complex and technical matter that they need people like you.
And I appreciate your thinking that, and while I might agree, I'm not sure, I'm just saying I'm not sure that they would agree that they need people like me, or that they need technical expertise other than that of their staff.
Interesting. But we see it, it's like I watch these, subcommittee hearings, and there is a lot of prep work that goes into all these questions by all these council members. Mm-hmm. And that comes from the division of land use.
Sometimes it really comes from their staff. Some members don't want the land use division involved in any of their projects, even with questions. With the committee itself, since it's not in their district, some members do want assistance from land use, and they want to look professional. Mm. Some just want to get out as soon as possible.
Yeah, so it's
a mixed bag.
Interesting.
And it also depends on how much a council member believes. I mean, years ago, a council member who will go unnamed, when I spoke to them about their participation in the committee, they said, my constituents did not elect me to come down here to City Hall to sit in hearings. They elected me to get their street sign fixed, to get the pothole fixed, to get the heat on in their building, to get education reform. They didn't elect me to be down here.
Wow.
And a lot, he was not the only member who has felt that way over the years. That anything that happens downtown, other than the budget, is really just not going to help them get reelected at all, and is not going to weigh in with their constituents.
Wow, interesting. All right.
On that depressed note.
I'm telling you, we need to do a 4th episode now. Well, Well, Gail, it's been really a super interesting conversation. Thank you all for joining us today on Carte Blanche. It's been an enlightening and engaging conversation with our guest, Commissioner Gail Benjamin. Now, before we sign off, I want to remind everybody to stay connected with us on social media. You can find Carte Blanche on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Your engagement and active participation are essential. Stay informed, ask questions, and let your voices be heard. That's why we have these hearings. Together, we can shape the future of our city. So, until next time, keep the dialogue going, and remember that here at Carte Blanche, the stage is always set for unscripted conversations. Signing off for now, this was Carte Blanche. Have a fantastic evening, everyone. Good night.